You're with Julian on the Brown Note, and finally a review of the latest album by Clipse. So I am an old head when it comes to rap music. I think stuff like Drake and J. Cole and Travis Scott is for children. So Clipse were a duo from the first decade of the century. Pusha T and Malice, Terence Thornton. And so Gene Malice and Terence Thornton, two brothers. Terence Thornton known as Pusha T and Gene known as Malice or No Malice in later years. Released, what was their first album? Lord Willing in 2002, which was a superb album. And they became synonymous with these some artists can go off in any direction and change focus with each project and so on, but they became known for doing the opposite, which was boxing themselves into this tiny square, which was doing coke raps about being coke dealers and so on. And it was then, okay, we've set these parameters, which are very narrow. How much can we do within the confines of this lyrically? And that was the masterclass of what they were able to do, using it to focus on just about anything they wanted. And Lord Willing was a great album and successful and known for the production of the Neptunes, who were Pharrell Williams and Chad, I can't remember his name now, at the start of the 2000s, the most prominent forward-thinking pop and R&B and hip-hop producers out there, and known for giving their best work to Clipse. And I think we've kind of decided that it was only Pharrell Williams that was working with Clipse. It wasn't both of them. And the Neptunes fell out a decade ago, I think. After that, the band fell into record label hell because their label got bought, I think, by another one, and they got put on the back burner. And that's when they became, as much as any other artist, synonymous with launching the notion of the mixtape. We are going to release music, and the label can go to hell because we're not charging for it. So we're not going to pay anyone for any samples. We're not going to give anything to our record label. We're just going to make an album. And they released the We Got It For Cheap series, which was We Got It For Cheap 2 is often regarded as the greatest mixtape of all time, as a stopgap between Lord Willing and then Hell Have No Fury in 2006. I've put a review online on this channel and given it a 10 out of 10. It's, I think, the best rap album this century. They don't do music where there's going to be 4 or 5 bangers on a 20-track rap album. It's more that every track is in the perfect place, and even nearly 20 years of listening to that album, it still sounds as good or better each year I listen to it, which I do every year. And that's the kind of music they make. It's music for old heads a lot as well. So Malice went on to become No Malice after that. So Till the Casket Drops in 2009 was a bit of a misfire. A commercial rag bag album that no one really liked. And around that time, the blurring of the lines between them being real coke dealers, or as Drake would point out in his many feuds with Pusha T since, fake drug dealers. It looked a lot like they were definitely involved in some shady stuff, because their manager ended up around this time being convicted in a multi-million dollar, $30 million coke dealing conspiracy and given a very long sentence. He might even be due for release, actually, but I think like 30 years inside. And the band seemed to run off in different directions. So Malice ended up becoming a born-again Christian and recording music as No Malice, and Pusha T ended up becoming a solo artist that took a long time to realize his potential. He released some strong solo albums that were very long and perhaps not as good as the best of Clipse, and quite, I think, latently quite boring. I don't think people went back to them much. But then he released Daytona. So Kanye West made Pusha T the head of his record label for many years and produced a 28-minute album called Daytona, I think around 2018, something like that, which was an absolute masterpiece and did set the rap world on fire. Exactly what was missing, this laser focus. It was a superb album, followed by another superb album, Till Wet Will Dry, or something like that. I can't remember the exact title, which at the end, the last track featured both Pusha T and Malice on a track. And they'd done so on a Kanye album as well, and that led to a lot of people speculating that Clipse were going to make a comeback. And they did. They said this year that they're going to release an album, which is what I'm reviewing now with that enormous backstory. So now we've got Let God Sort Them Out, which is a fantastic album. They don't make albums that contain 4 bangers and 20 tracks, and they make very laser-focused music. So there's only 13 tracks on this album, and that actually feels quite a long Clipse album as well. Everything in its right place is what they do. It's not... A few of these tracks are going to be 10 out of 10 hits. It's that everything is going to be virtually the same standard, built to be listened to 100 times over a decade, as I have done with Hell Have No Fury. There are elements to this album that are new for the band, such as the opener, The Birds Don't Sing, with a hook from John Legend, and the lyrics on it are much more personal and introspective than I've heard on a Clipse song. So he talks, both of them take turns in verses, and they talk about the deaths of their mother and father in quite powerful ways. So, for instance, after his mother's died, he comes home to visit his father, and this is actually pretty chilling stuff. Your car was in the driveway, I knew you were home. By the third knock, a chill ran through my bones. The way you miss mama, I guess I should have known. Chivalry ain't dead. You ain't let her go alone. It's pretty potent stuff. And the Pharrell production is like these piano chords left hanging in the air with some strings on it. I thought the John Legend vocal was a little bit schmaltzy, but it's grown on me. And they're very well known for the density of their lyrics and multiple meanings of words. And there's a very strong element of what their parents brought to them, which is, precision, planning, exactness, discipline. Stuff that's always apparent in Clipse's music. Here the brothers are saying that has come from their parents. And the fact that the album rollout is, any political figure would kill to have. The rollout of the album has been noted for its perfection about every step along the way that they've done. It's just been so incredible. I think it's an independent album because they got kicked off the label Def Jam for refusing to remove a verse from Kendrick Lamar, which has nothing to even do with Drake. So I think it ended up being an independent release album. And the double meaning, this is a good example of their double meaning of the use of the word bass in its more normal form, and also the word bass meaning cocaine. See, my dad made sure he had every base covered, so imagine his pain finding bass in the cupboard. And there's, you can pore over these lyrics, and ever since the first 2 singles came out, that's exactly what the online community's been doing, which is looking through these lyrics. Chains and Whips, the second song, has one of the most insane Pharrell productions ever. It's filthy, guitar chimes, dramatic bass, and another thing that pissed everyone off was this is culturally inappropriate. Sample, which I thought at first would happen too many times on the album, but I've kind of got used to that and the kind of schmaltzy soul vocals quite quickly. So it sounds like the woman from the Skepta song, Shut Down, to me. I don't know if that's true. But the production is just mental, these clanking noises, and Kendrick brings out a quality verse. His turn on it is excellent. And they show themselves, if you've got a Travis Scott album, you're going to have every farmer's boy on there doing a rap. But they're very concise in who they let. Stevie Wonder's on this album, but they don't have just any man and his dog coming on to do guest verses. And any man and his dog would be shown up horrendously. Kendrick's verse is very, very strong here. The third track, POV's got Tyler, the Creator, another high-profile person to have on the album, who is slightly less good, actually. He does stand out for me. It's a good, strong verse, but it's not quite up to the others, I don't think. And it's got an old-school, mid-paced vibe from Pharrell. Then we get the two singles, which is So Be It and Ace of Trumpets, which were released to a lot of surprise online by how good they were. I was expecting a 7 out of 10 album. I wasn't expecting those two back-to-back singles to be so good. So the Middle Eastern production on So Be It was an immediate standout with its backward shuffling rhythm section on it. And they're like the ultimate craftsman. And the pacing of this album is just perfection. Everything in its right place, to quote Radiohead. And Ace of Trumpets as well. That was the first one, and it did have some very interesting lyrics on it, like Penny a la Vodka, Panama Fishing Village, Visiting with Papa with Choppers, All of You Imposters, Simply Just Ferrari Window Shoppers, the one I ordered looked like it was built by NASA, Over $500,000 we call Focaccia, Reaching for Acacia, Never Leaving Home Without My Peace Like I'm Mahatma, and the double meaning of peace from the gun to Gandhi as well, being typical of them. And they're both outstanding tracks as well. All Things Considered might be a little bit more on the lower point of the album. It's got a very, I suppose a lot of people have commented on how commercial the production is on here, perhaps a little bit, but there's a nice bit of, it's not as weird as some of the previous Clipse releases, but there's a nice sub bass on it. And, you know, they're both 50-ish, and I don't remember anyone from the past being that old and releasing as vital an album. Like, we've had some really good sort of throwback albums, but something as vital as this to be one of, arguably, the rap album of the year, I just think they're the oldest to have ever done it, really. And there's quite a few sub 3-minute tracks on here where they get things done. I mean, Mike Tyson Blow to the Face is quite a absolute bomb of a track. A proper old school boom bap, almost like a Wu-Tang vibe from like mid-90s. And again, lyrical and rapping masterclass. I really did like EBITDA, which I think might, and that's got a Pharrell hook on it. A few of them have got Pharrell's trademark Clipse hooks, which are always out of tune. To great effect. I think EBITDA stands for something like earnings before income tax deduction, something or other, which has got an absolutely phenomenal driving soundstage to it. It's really quite incredible for 2 minutes as well. Grew up playing real life Contra. And they do mention the show Wire as well, The Wire. I think they were the people that gave, I'm waving so to make sure this thing's in focus. I think they gave The Wire the term the burners for the phones, actually. And they've mentioned The Wire quite a lot in their career. And it's an album that's built to last. It's an album that you imagine that you'll go back to every year and listen to, and maybe it will fall down the ladder a little bit, or maybe it will go up and solidify. I certainly listened to it about 20 times before I started getting bored. I shouldn't have done the review when I was at that stage, because I was enthralled for like the first 15 listens about how good this was. And by the time I did the review, I was about 20 listens in, and I was just like, I'm a bit over it at the moment. I'll probably go back to it in a few months and see where it sits in my albums of the year. So there are coke raps. I think like Inglourious Bastards is a coke rap. And they do lean back into their old thing. And Malice is standing out as Christian Malice is probably even more evil than Malice originally. He's been absolutely clinically destructive on these releases. And, the whole thing is just, there's some nice heavy synth bass, which is what the Neptunes and Clipse were known for around tracks like Trill, which I wish there was a bit more of. Closed Casket, 'Cause I'm Only Sicking You With Wolves. And then we get a bookend to that opening track, which is another hymnal one, with a big hook on it as well, featuring Pharrell. I was just looking for the one that features Stevie Wonder. I wasn't sure which one he was on. So yeah, this is a fantastic album, which I'm reviewing at the wrong point because I did absolutely think it was spectacular. And I think I've overdone it, like watching Goodfellas 5 times in a row. It's just like, I can't do this anymore. But it's a fantastic album and so much better than we'd ever hoped. Built for long-term listening and everything put together like a Swiss watchmaker. And lyrically a masterclass, delivery a masterclass. And most of the production, even though it's a little bit on the less weird and more commercial side to some of the Clipse albums, it's still outstanding, with several of the beats on here, like Chains and Whips and so on, are being absolute masterclasses. So I'm going to give it an outrageously high 9.5 out of 10 to Clipse, and let God sort them out. Hallelujah.